Coming up on episode 129 of Creative Writing, I'm talking with Paula Rollo about creating viral content.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hey everybody, it's Kirsten from Creative Writing, and I know sometimes podcasters say, my voice sounds terrible and you can't tell, but I think you actually can tell my voice sounds terrible. My husband said to me earlier tonight that I sound like a boy going through puberty. So thanks, honey, for the vote of confidence. But don't worry, you're not going to have to listen to a scratchy voice for long because I pre-recorded an interview with Paula Rollo from Beauty Through Imperfection and Quick Blogging Tips, which is a fantastic Facebook group we'll talk about more later. And we're talking about viral content. Now, in a previous episode, I talked about binge-worthy content. So this is kind of not the flip side of the coin, but related. So viral content gets eyes on your work, and then binge-worthy means you're creating work that people want to keep on consuming. So if you put these two things together, and we're definitely going to talk about that and how you can keep people reading and keep them engaged, you're going to hear about that. But hey, I didn't tell you who I am or what this podcast is about. So if this is your first time and I just dove right in, don't be scared. This is the place for you, a writer, blogger, or creative who wants to build an online platform without being smarmy. So here at Creative Writing, we talk about all things audience building, how to create content on your blog, writing books, growing your social media and email list, all using tactics that are not going to leave you feeling gross at the end of the day. So things that work, things that are authentic, and are going to let you create content that you love and connect with people around the interweb. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to talk with Paula Rollo, and just a few quick things before we get into the actual interview. As I am posting this, it is almost the end of February, and I want to make sure that you guys heard the last episode, the state of creative, because I'm highlighting some really important things that are kind of time sensitive that I offer. And I made sure to say this, and I'm kind of always going to say this, but when I talk about things that are paid, be aware that I do consider them offers. I'm holding them out. If you take them, great. If you don't, great, because they should really only be taken by people who feel like I'd be a good fit, or the package would be a good fit, or the price. So I really don't want this to be something where you feel like I'm just constantly like selling to you. Nope, I'm just offering things. So I did want to let you guys know that the Creative Community membership is going to close on March 1st to new members, probably until the fall. And what the membership looks like, it's a private Facebook group for one, which is, according to the members, like a happy place, a safe space. It's really something quite unique. And I'm capping it at 50 people. So I don't think we're going to hit that. But if we do hit that before March 1st, I will close the group. I also have an extensive content library that I'm adding to every single month. We have Q&A kind of office hour calls that we're going to have, and just challenges, support, accountability. So if you're really looking to level up your growth and you don't want to do it alone, if you want to make strides forward, the membership is for you, and it's going to be closing. So don't miss your opportunity to join in. If you want to find out more information, you can do that by going to creativewriting.com/membership. And if you are interested in working one-on-one, my calendar for the year is already filling up and I'm booked through April. So if you want to work with me one-on-one, I have been this month helping a lot of people set up their email lists, both on MailChimp and ConvertKit, with welcome series, forums on the blog, and more, plus working with some people on their entire brand and figuring out things on how to get their book set up for publication, self-publication. So if those things are interesting to you, if you need some help, I would love to work with you. Just head over to creativewriting.com, and right at the top, you'll see work with me. So you can see my packages, or I can create something custom. So again, I'm just letting you know about those because they are filling up. I've never had so much one-on-one work. I'm getting a lot of referrals, which is great. But if you want to work with me, get on it. So with that all said, I want to get into this interview. It's a long one, and there were so many great points. So if you need a refresher, if you need to look at the links, you can go to creativewriting.com /129 to see the show notes and find out how you can connect with Paula. And just to warn you, we did have a little bit of an audio issue. I had a community wizard and wonderful guy, host of the One Verse Devotional podcast, Matt McCarrick, clean it up. So thank you, Matt. But it is a little bit rougher than the typical interview episode. So here we go with the interview.
We push and go and go and go. They say someday there will be time to take it slow, but
on this episode, I've got Paula Rollo back for her second time. She was here on episode 5, which is so long ago you can't even listen to it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts anymore. It is only living on my blog, which you'll have to go and find episode 5. But I'm really glad to have you back. Why did it take us so long to get back to this, Paula?
I don't know. Apparently I'm like a podcasting dinosaur and didn't even know it.
Yes, that or like a better way. You're just like I'm trying to think, expert or someone who's been around a long time. You're like the grandfather. No, that still sounds bad. Okay. Well, whatever. You're awesome. And we've both been busy. How about that?
I'll take that one. Yeah. That's probably the most honest.
Yes. So we are going to talk today about viral content. And you are one of my go-to people to talk with about this because I know that you've actually experienced not just like I've had things where I'm like, hey, a lot of people looked at this today and like had big jumps, but nothing that's like the kind of viral you have had. And I know that you like to look into the why things work, which I love about you. So we are going to dive into that today. And last week we talked about on the podcast binge-worthy content. So binge-worthy and viral, they're not two sides of the same coin, but I feel like they're both kind of important things to think about. So I want to tie them together at the end. But for now, what is viral content? Because everybody throws that word around. So what would you say actually is viral content?
Yeah, I think you're leading with like the hardest question out there.
Sorry.
But I think it's important to kind of acknowledge, like you said, people do throw that term around. And so it's a term that can, if you don't feel like you've had a viral anything yet, that can be really discouraging because it's like apparently everyone else has gone viral. And you're just the only one over there not. I remember being in that place for several years in my blogging career where it felt just like everybody's always talking about something going viral. And I'm like, I'm over here with like 3.5 page views. I don't know what's going wrong. So first off, right off the bat, I want to make sure we're acknowledging that everyone defines this differently. And so when you hear that word thrown around, don't ever feel down on yourself for not achieving whatever somebody else seems to be achieving because you have no idea what they mean by that word. I think it's important to define it for you so that you can rejoice when you get whatever you think a viral is. For me, I'm honestly one of those people too that has defined it differently through the years. At one time, it was just like if I got more than 5,000 views in a day, I considered that thing viral. Just because that was like gold for me at the time. But then as I started getting 5,000 views a day regularly, viral turned into something else for me. What I like, one of the ways that I like hearing it defined is like anytime you get more than like 10 times your normal traffic in a day or 2 or 3 times, just like going off of percentages of traffic. I think that's the most kind of fair way of defining a viral. Across the board, because, for one person, like for someone like me, a viral is going to look very different than like something on BuzzFeed going viral. You know what I mean?
That's true.
But then there's also the kind of viral that most of us don't experience, which is like worldwide sensational, you're being called by the Today Show type of viral, which is just, I don't think anyone can ever plan for that. And I don't think most of us will achieve that in our lifetime, though I know a few bloggers who have. I don't think most of us are meaning that when we say went viral.
That's true. Well, to give us some context, and this really puts you on the spot because I didn't ask you this. I know you've had there was a recent post you had maybe before Christmas that went crazy on Facebook that had, a ton of shares. Do you have any number that you're like, I had this one thing and it got shared this many times, just to kind of quantify any of this?
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm an open book about pretty much anything. I like to joke, like bloggers, we overshare for a living, right? So
That's true. Everything's
on the table. It's fine. So the Facebook post I think you're referring to was just a meme. It didn't go to a post on my blog or anything. It was just on Facebook. And it was, I think to date, it's hit like 2.5 million. And that's just from my page. That's not counting all of the massive pages that stole it from me and got way better reach than I did.
Wow.
So that was like 2.5 million. And my Facebook page has just under 20,000 followers on it. So that was over 10 times, definitely absolutely viral, no matter how you cut it, in my terms. Though I didn't, Today Show wasn't calling me or anything like that.
That's so cool though. So wait, 2.5 million, what? Like people saw it, people shared it, like commented?
Yes,
like...
that was Facebook reach. So
Okay.
people saw it on
That's
Facebook
really cool.
from my little dinky Facebook page. When I'm talking about posts going viral, like for me, there's been a couple that I've had over 100,000 views in a day on. And so those are what I hold to as like my virals now versus things doing really, really well. Which would be obviously much less than 100,000 in a day. I think I've only had 2 or 3 posts that have ever done that. So
that's really cool. Okay, so my first thing I'm thinking of when you're like the Today Show calls people is that sounds terrifying to me. And like,
right?
Yeah, and I know that there's
been called by the Today Show, so I'm not.
No, yeah. Well, I feel like that would, I don't know. Sometimes when you get to that level, there's scary things that happen. So I guess I want to talk next about like the benefits of having something go viral and then the downside.
Sure. I'm always like negative Nancy, so I like think of the downside before I think of the
Well, let's start there.
Okay. So yeah, the downside, because I think people don't talk about that. So it's the most fascinating to me, because everybody always talks about the good things. Some of the downsides are if it's to your blog, it can crash your site if you don't have a good host. So please make sure you have a good host as soon as you can, basically. There's so many downsides. I'm just like
list them off, girl. I'm a worst case scenario person.
I think one of the biggest things that is a downside that people don't really acknowledge or talk about much is if you have something go viral that is not on brand for you, or that you can't stand behind, that's extremely controversial. And I can kind of take that on from a couple different directions. So for one thing, if you have something that's not super on brand for you that takes off, it's just kind of meaningless. And so this actually happened to me with my first true like viral content, this post that got literally 100,000 views in a day. And at the time I was probably getting 3,000 to 4,000 a day, just to put that into perspective of the difference there. So I got 100,000 views on this post, but it was about meal planning. At the time, I didn't really have any recipes on my blog. I didn't have anything to do with people after they saw this post for the meal plan. So they came, they visited my site, and they left. Other than getting a lot of ad revenue that day, it meant nothing to me. I didn't know enough back then of like what to do for viral content, how to optimize. I didn't know any of those things. And I think we're going to talk about how to, what to do when something goes viral later. But it was useless. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's just all I have is regret and being able to say I got 100,000 views on this meal planning post, but I didn't even have an opt-in for my email list, which I know makes you die on the inside.
Only a little.
But I didn't know any better, and I didn't have anything like now there's like a email opt-in for it's a meal planning post, so it's a meal planning printable, and I funnel them into my foodie content and things like that. But at the time, it was just page views, and that was a huge bummer for me because it could have been so much more, and because it wasn't really relevant to my true audience at the time. My audience has since broadened, but it wasn't at the time, so it did nothing for me.
I'm going to speak to this too, because just giving another example, like I was checking out the analytics from my lifestyle blog, which is really dormant is a nice way to put it right now. But my biggest post from last year on that site, which is mostly like it started as parenting, right? And then moved into food because I like cooking and photography and other things. It's just a lifestyle, right? So I had my biggest post last year was how to clean pee off furniture.
I knew it was going to be that one. I knew it.
And like you talk about things being a bummer, like there are posts on that blog that like my heart is all out on the table, right? And then there's the post and like it's helpful, like hint, you don't have to go read it put a whole lot of salt on it, like dump a whole container of salt on it, it pulls up the pee. There it is. You don't need to go read it. So like when everybody was reading this, if I'm not, I have ads on that blog. So like that helps when, and that takes off every couple months and people start reading it again. But it doesn't get me my ideal reader. It doesn't get me anyone who cares about me and my brand and what I'm doing. It's just people who need a quick how-to post because somebody peed on the carpet. Like,
right.
So, again, if you're like number one source of revenue is ads, then these viral posts, it's kind of like, who cares? But if you're trying to build something that has more heart behind it,
right.
Yeah. And so tip for you guys just thrown in here, when you're going to post content on your blog, you may want to think about like, what if this is my viral post? Like, what if this post goes viral? Is this really on point for me? And that I really started thinking about that more and more when I did sponsored posts, because a lot of the ones I was taking, I was like, yeah, I could write about that. But then I look back and I'm like, but should I have?
Right.
Was it worth that $150, $200, whatever they paid me? I don't care about car insurance. Like, so,
yeah.
Anyway, just something to think about, because if that one post is that post, like, does that represent you well? Is it what you'd want people to know you for? And a lot of my posts now, I'm like, nope, like pee on furniture. I'm leaving it up. Like, maybe it'll help somebody. Like, that's part of my life is pee on furniture. But yeah, it just stinks.
Right. It's not that you're necessarily ashamed of the post, but
No.
you wish that readers were coming to something else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I will say, kind of, as you mentioned, sponsored posts, like, I think that can be another huge downside that we don't necessarily think about with viral content, is how it affects your page views when you're pitching brands and when you're getting sponsored posts for the next month. And so what I've learned to do is that after I have a viral, the first time I was like very optimistic, like, this is just going to be my blog now. I'm going to have all these crazy page views and it's going to be awesome. And I really fell flat on a couple sponsored campaigns because I had told them, honestly, my numbers for the past month, and they were ridiculously high. But then the brand was expecting something of me that I couldn't deliver.
Yeah.
And so now when I have a viral, I just don't include that in my, all the brands ask for page view estimates and things. And even if I send a screenshot, a lot of the time I'll send two and just be like, I need you to understand that this was a viral post and I want you to see a accurate reflection of my work, but I don't want them to think I'm being sketchy, which is why I send both and just kind of say, like, this was March, don't count that. Here was February. Please assume that I'm this regular size from February. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind as you go forward, because it can seem like, oh, brands will pay me way more. But they'll also never work with you again if they're paying you based off of thinking you can deliver 1 million page views and you can't.
That's such a great point that people don't think about, because I think mostly it's like, yay, I got to this point, so now is the time to pitch people when I have these great numbers. But yeah, you're right. If you can't deliver, then you just kind of fail. And I think about, this is sort of different but related. Like, there's a particular, I was debating about saying the name. I'm not going to say the name. If you guys ask me in the Facebook group, I'll tell you. There is a particular company that works with bloggers and they pay per click. You know what I'm talking about. And so many of you guys out there are like,
I've sworn off them.
Yeah. So, but how this works is that people game the system. But the problem is this, and I'm trying to think I think I was in there's a lot of groups where you like basically just post every day. Here's a thread, put your links in here, we'll click it, which, just so you know, like, that doesn't help the brand. And if the brand knew that, I know they'd be mad, right? Because they're not paying
It actually violates their terms of service and they'll kick you out if they find out that you're doing that.
Well, they don't seem to care because, well, anyway, that's a whole other topic. But yes, you shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, it's smarmy, you guys. But what happens then is that if you actually try to authentically do a post for them with the link in there, but don't do anything extra to promote that link in that, violating the terms of service kind of way, you're going to make less money because you get paid by the clicks. And then they up what you're supposed to get. And then if you don't get that, you get paid less. And so the last time I worked with him, I think I was really frustrated. And I was like, I don't like this post very much. And I feel like I have to promote it triple what I would normally promote a post because I have to get to those clicks. So I wrote one for them and did not do anything extra. I just did what I normally do. And I think I got paid like $30, which was like, I think a fifth of what I got paid for like the previous campaign where I like really hustled. And, so it just different different story, like kind of an offshoot of that, but I think it's really important in terms of thinking of your integrity and what you're doing about that. So, okay, I got us sidetracked. Do you have more bad things about virals, or do we want to move on to some good things?
I wanted to say a little bit on the topic, because we can kind of write something that maybe we mean, but we don't want to stand behind. That's not necessarily a hill we want to die on. So make sure if you're writing things that it's something you can stand behind. Because like you said, is this the post that I want to go viral? I've had a couple of things go really, really viral that were highly, highly controversial. And both of them were things that I was fine standing behind my position on them. And I got, scathing emails and, people threatening to call CPS on me. I mean, it was crazy stuff. But I could stand behind both of those posts. I've seen this happen to other bloggers where they've written like a really controversial post, and then when people are commenting and arguing, they're like, I mean, I don't really mean what I said. I was just trying to get page views. No, please don't ever do that.
For so many reasons. Like there's so many reasons you shouldn't do that. But I mean,
there are, but also like even if it's something you do believe in, do you want this going viral? Can you defend this till the day you die? Type of idea. Will you regret having to argue with people about this? This has happened with, like, I wrote about the Beauty and the Beast movie because I got to see it early. So I had to argue with people about my opinions on the Beauty and the Beast movie when I had seen it and they hadn't. And that was when like Disney was like single-handedly ruining everyone's children's lives or something ridiculous. So that was like crazy, but I really felt strongly about my stance, so I defended it.
Which I think your stance was like, it's a good movie. And then
yeah, but I mean, you wouldn't believe the emails that I got from people.
No, I wouldn't believe that.
Like, this is what happened. I didn't think it was a big deal, and I thought the movie was great. But I also wrote a post. This was like years ago about. There were these women and their posts were going viral talking about how they had left their kids in the car and gone into a store and someone had called the police, and like they were basically saying, don't call the police if you see a kid trapped in a car. And I wrote a rebuttal to it that was basically like, please do call the police if you see a kid trapped in a car. Obviously, this is going to be highly controversial. I knew that it would. But people got really, really angry. But I'm like, look, I live in Texas. Like, kids die in the car every day in Texas. It feels like, Yeah. And so like at least every summer we have like multiple deaths of children.
There are across the country, not just in the South, but across the country.
That's true.
Yeah. So I understand that completely. And
so I'm like, honestly, like if I accidentally leave my kid in the car, I absolutely would like the police called on me because please save my kid's life. But that was really, really controversial. And I had to be able to stand behind that post is kind of the point that I'm trying to make. And so make sure that when you're writing these things that you have a very clear thought, that you have a very clear point, and that it's a point that you can defend kind of to the death, because people may actually threaten to kill you, because I've gotten that too.
Wow. It just seems so crazy, but I know everyone knows that's how it is. Like if you're on any kind of social media or you go read the comment section of any news site, like how it is online, especially. Yeah.
And the more viral it goes, just the more vicious people get because the trolls come out of the woodwork.
Yeah. What is it with the people that just live online to hate? They're crazy. Crazy trolls. Get back under the bridge.
But it's something to think about, when you're posting things, and when you're posting things, especially that are more heartfelt. I've also written a lot about like surviving child abuse and how to prevent that. And people have been nasty about that as well. And like coming after me saying I wasn't actually abused and stuff. And I'm like, what?
I don't even understand that. I don't
either. But I always caution people, like I obviously think people should be sharing their stories. But if you have something that you're hesitating to publish and it's really, really difficult for you to publish, maybe don't yet in case it goes viral. You don't want something going viral that's very close and personal to your heart. Until you're ready for a troll to attack it, because that can be really, really hard and really damaging if it's something that's very personal and very emotional for you to be sharing with the world. And so I think those things are important to think about before you publish.
Well, and I think we've seen this year and in the last year too, some stories of people who've had viral posts happen and then really big consequences. Like I think of that couple, and I don't remember the full story, but it was a couple and it was something to do with a wedding photographer, and they were bloggers, and they basically like smeared her, and that their story smearing her went viral, and then there's a lawsuit. Like, we're talking real life consequences. So it's not just people being mean. Like there are some big things that can happen to you when this happens. So again, probably not all of us are getting there, but I think it is important to think, what if it did? Like, I don't think people think about that. And I know I've had my finger like hovering over like the click thing, what is that even called? The square thing in my computer that clicks. There's a name for that.
A trackpad.
Yes, the trackpad. These are things I should know, but I don't. Hovering over the trackpad over publish. And I've just been like, you know what, this one's got to stay in draft. And maybe it won't forever, but it will for now. Because that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about. Am I ready for this to be something I stand behind for real? And if it went big, am I ready for that? And the answer is not always yes. So
that's not. It took me 3 years to write one post at one time. And it ended up going viral. And then I'm glad I wrote it. I took that 3 years because I wasn't ready for it to be published yet. Both in, I hadn't formed my complete thought for the post, and also just where I was emotionally and how much I was argued with about that post. I wasn't ready. So I'm glad I waited.
Awesome. Well, what are some of the good things then about these viral posts, which we've covered? I think not just the negative, but just sort of the cautionary bits about it. So what's good that can come from viral posts?
I mean, there's a lot of good as well. Obviously, the revenue is a huge number one. I think as anyone who's trying to make money on their blog, that's obviously going to be awesome whenever you can get that push. When something does go viral that is on brand for you, that's just the dream. Because not only are you getting that big push, but hopefully you can get some core readers out of it and some new exposure to other people's audiences. Becoming known for something, especially if it's on brand for you, is just amazing. And that's absolutely our goal as bloggers, is to kind of build a name for ourselves and build a name around a specific brand of something that we care about. And so going viral on a topic that you care about is just there's nothing better. I feel like I can't even explain why that's awesome, because it's just everything about it is perfect and what we're all striving for.
Well, I think that leads into the binge-worthy content, because if it is on brand, then people hit your site. And I'm thinking of a couple different bloggers where a post hit my Facebook feed, because I feel like that's where I run into blog posts. I clicked, I read, and then I just stayed on that blog for an hour reading posts. And so that's that binge-worthy effect. When you have a viral post that is on brand, then everybody just wants to read everything you've written, and they just hang out on your blog. And that's when they binge, is when they really make that connection to you. And that doesn't typically happen with like the how to clean urine off your sofa post. Like it often is more like the heartfelt, which I think we're going to get into like the anatomy of them. But I think, I think for me, that's like the biggest dream, is to have the viral post that makes sense for you.
That makes sense for you, that you can kind of, you can build a viral post into a career, honestly. And that is just, there's one post in particular that I'm thinking of on my site that post built my job. I started understanding how to write to my audience. I wrote a book about it. I have a series now. I have a funnel leading into my book, and I have shirts, and like that built my brand. And while my brand is not only that post anymore, that's where I started, absolutely. And I'm a full-time blogger, breadwinner. My husband doesn't work anymore now, largely because of that blog post. So that's kind of the power of a viral post that can kind of launch your career in a way sometimes.
That's really cool. Well, I know it's not that easy, but I love this about you. And you just started touching on it, that you built it into things and you started understanding. So let's first talk about what it takes. Like if you're able to reverse engineer a viral post, which isn't always possible, but sometimes you can work towards it. And then I have some follow-ups about kind of what do you do to optimize it. So let's start with okay, you're going to create a viral post from scratch. How do you do that?
Okay, so I would say the first just necessary ingredient is going to be resonating with people's emotions. I think I first heard Scott Stratton say this, and it was just something along the lines of, I'm going to butcher his quote because he's great and I don't phrase things the way that he does, but it was something along the lines of, people are looking for an emotional connection, and that's what they'll share with other people. That you have to write something so compelling that it's either, you know, this gut-wrenching story or this happy moment or whatever it is. You have to make someone feel an emotion so strong that they can't help but want their friends to feel that with them. And that is how most viral things are born. And I've seen that to be true, actually, of all of my viral posts, which is why I was like, oh, he's right. I didn't realize that that was the key ingredient. But from the meme that I made on Facebook it was just funny. And people enjoyed that funny humor, that emotion, and shared it with their friends. The kids in the car one, some people were sharing it because they were so angry about it and they were hate sharing, and other people were sharing because they had been so angry about this other woman's posts, and they were like saying, like, finally this woman has given me relief in what she's written. But both of those are very emotional responses and made people share it with their friends. And I think that that's one of the important things to keep in mind as well, because for a while I would kind of consider things viral in my head if like a bigger blogger shared it and I got a boost in page views. But that it's kind of like cheating in my mind now. Like, it's not the same thing as just you're seeing this shared by just regular humans, not bloggers, not people who, you know, are hoping to get something back from you for sharing. It's just regular people felt something, and so they shared it with their friends. That is grassroots viral for me, and what I love when I see that happening to my posts. So making sure that you have like one emotion that you're shooting for people to feel, and that they can feel an emotion in your post. Obviously with the urine on the sofa, like that's a little bit different. You're just straight up meeting a need.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's really important to distinguish. And I think going back to finding that ideal reader and like really resonating with people, like the emotional stuff is what resonates, right? People come, you know, everybody talks about how you need to write to solve a problem. Well, yeah. But also, like, if you're just solving a problem, they're going to have their problem solved and then leave, right? So that's why a lot of times I feel like when I get traffic from Pinterest, it's people who come and they bounce right away because they come, they figure out the problem is solved, and then they go. And, you know, sometimes I see them stay deeper, but I found that the higher the percentage of traffic from Pinterest for me, the higher my bounce rate of people who came, were like, oh, cool, now I know. And then they left. Whereas like Facebook is where my emotional posts were shared, because that's where people were sort of acting more with their emotions. And so I feel like we hear all the time as bloggers, like, solve the problem, meet the need. But this emotional aspect, that's not really like it meets sort of a weird intangible need. Like, we all need to feel something. Like, we need to feel connection with other people, but it's not very tangible. It's not very measurable in the same way. And so I think that's hugely important to distinguish between those things.
Well, you're kind of meeting the need, and this is how I look at it for my site, because I do try to write posts that I feel like are meeting a need, but a lot of the time I feel like my job as a blogger, at least, so we're in a similar niche in our family blogs where it's like lifestyle, a little bit of everything, but we definitely love those emotional posts. But I still kind of ask myself, what need am I meeting here? But a lot of the time, as a blogger, I look at myself as meeting the needs that people don't know how to express that they have, and giving words to the things that moms are feeling that they don't know how to say. So they've been using this car one as an example. They've been feeling icky about these posts that these other women have been sharing, but they don't know how to say that. And I said it for them. I have another one that was that went viral about a friend of mine, and he's not a parent, but he said something to me that really impacted the way that I parent my children, and I shared that. And it was kind of about slowing down, about noticing the little moments that I have with my kids. And that's not something someone's going to search for on Pinterest. That post never has done well on Pinterest. But on Facebook it does, because it does meet that need where you're like, I didn't see this moment with my child, but now I do, and I needed to see it. So no one comes to you looking for that problem or that need to be met, but it is a need that they have in their lives, which they realize after reading your post. And so that's what I try to fill with my readers, is giving words to people who don't have the words to say what they're feeling themselves.
I love the way you put that. That's like so profound and also like really straightforward. So thinking about that then, and I feel like, you know, we kind of touched on this, but Facebook seems to be, at least for the present time, until, let's not even touch on what Facebook's doing now, but for now is the place where a lot of things go viral because of the emotion. Like, we're not on Pinterest to feel stuff. We're on Pinterest to figure out what's for dinner or look at pretty things. We're on Facebook because that's where we have all the feels, like good and bad. That's where all our feels live, is on Facebook. So what do you do then for those posts in terms of like the image and the headline and descriptions? Because I feel like those things matter, because that's all the people see, right, at first, until they go read the post. So what do you do?
So if it's something that I think maybe one day might be search worthy on Google, I will, you know, do my normal, go to Google Trends, go to a headline analyzer, try to come up with a good SEO worthy something on there. But honestly, a lot of the times, like I said, I'm giving words to things people don't know they're feeling. No one's going to be searching for that on Google. So a lot of the time with these posts, I don't even SEO optimize at all. I just go straight to what I feel invokes the most emotion on Facebook for the title. I use the co-schedule headline analyzer. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. I've only been using that probably in the last 3 or 4 months, but I love it. It's really helpful in, you know, just you can type in 15 different headlines and it'll kind of give you a number rank on them of how good of a headline it thinks that it is going to be. And it tries to like kind of train you to use like emotion words and just things that people will want to click on with its science-y wizardry. I don't really understand it, but
it's a pretty cool tool. I'll link to it. Again, I feel like it's one of those things that like I knew about years ago and then just don't use, and so I forget about it.
Right. Yeah. And I get stuck. Honestly, headlines are not my strongest point at all. I come up with really dumb things a lot of the time. So like if you ever watch my process on Headline Analyzer, I'm just typing in dumb stuff until I finally like accidentally come up with something good. That's my process.
That's the process, guys. There's the magic formula right there.
Right. So I'll do that. And I try to, I mean, again, I'm in the family parenting niche, so I try to get emotional images. I want to have an image where people are connecting. I want to have an image where they don't look posed, where somebody is experiencing an emotion. And so that image that's shared on Facebook is so important because that's a preview of the emotion that they're going to feel when they click on your post. So the exception to that is like if it's like a gut-wrenching post, you don't want it to necessarily be a gut-wrenching image, but you can make it like a little bit darker toned or something so that people are a little bit prepared for what they're going to be reading just because they've seen that image. It made them feel a tingle of something, and then they click through and read your post and hopefully get the full-blown tidal wave of emotion.
Now, are you using stock photos or your own photos for these, or a mix?
A mix for sure. I don't normally have a lot of great photos of my kids because my photos are like, my kids are like very eccentric in the way that they dress and different things like that. And that's not necessarily that emotive if you're not their mom or their grandma. So
yeah.
Like, here's my kid. Like today, my daughter wore pajama pants and a bathing suit top to school. So
I totally had one that did that last week. Just so you know, in fact, she wore the bathing suit top over another top. So she had on like
amazing.
Yeah. Oh man, they should get together. We should do that.
So I love that about her, you know, and that makes me feel emotions, but that's not necessarily what people come to Facebook to click on. So.
Yeah, they might get confused. Like, why is that child wearing a bathing suit top with pajama bottoms?
Right. It's distracting. It's not making them feel an emotion. It's making, like, they may stop and stare for a second, but they're going to keep scrolling because the emotion they feel is confusion, not this moment of connection between a mom and her daughter or, you know, different things. So.
That's really helpful. Okay, so I want to talk about then, the description. Okay, so you've got the headline, but then there's also like a little snippet of a description. So how do you write those? Because I feel like that's really tough to do as well.
So most successfully, you can do it a lot of different ways. Like if it's very if your image is amazing and your headline are amazing, you can just share like a couple words or even a repeat of the title, and get away with it. Now, I know we don't want to dive too deep into what Facebook's doing right now, but we used to be able to say things like, what do you think? Or comment below with your thoughts and things like that. Facebook is kind of penalizing words like that now, which that is like the verbiage I used on a few of my viral posts. So now what I'm kind of transitioning into is just pulling like one sentence or maybe even like two or three, like for a full paragraph from the post itself. Making sure that they don't use any of those naughty words for Facebook anymore, and then just throwing that up there in quotes so that if people kind of like stop to look at the image and the title and are like, maybe do I want to click or not, hopefully that sentence or two will convince them that the writing is good enough that they want to click and read the rest.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think
you kind of whet their appetite. You don't want to give like the punchline at the end, and you don't necessarily want to write just like the intro, because intros are kind of, dry sometimes, but give them something that's interesting, but not the full weight of the post.
Yeah, and I think this is where people don't always spend enough time, is in the framing of things. Like, I don't know how many of you guys listening are in Facebook groups where they have promo days. I have one on the weekend in my Facebook group, which is at creativewriting.com/community. And so over the weekend, people can share their links in this one thread. And when I intro it, I always say like, hey, this is your chance to practice copywriting, give us a reason to click. And sometimes people will still just literally like paste the link in. And if you haven't done a good job with like using like the SEO for WordPress by Yoast plugin or something else, it doesn't even pull all the stuff you want it to pull, like when there's a little tiny preview. And I see this in Facebook groups around, as well, where people don't do a good job with what I call the framing. And if you don't do a good job with that, why would anyone click? And so I think it really is hugely important, but people don't think about it. They worry about the post itself and kind of like the meta description there and the title there, but like, you can't just drop links on Facebook. Like, that's not, it doesn't work well.
That used to be a valid strategy, but it's really not anymore.
Yeah. So I think it's important to think
honestly,
about.
I think that a lot of the time that comes from insecurity of just not wanting to brag on yourself, or just feeling weird talking up your own post. But I see this all the time on Facebook, honestly, not even just in the threads, but scrolling through another blogger's page. And I'm not thinking of anyone in particular because it's across the board. A lot of people do this, and I'll scroll through and I'll see them sharing other people's links with, oh my gosh, I love this. I'm resonating with this for this reason. And they brag up these posts that are from other bloggers. And then you kind of scroll down and you see one of their own links, and it's just like maybe the title of the post or, something, but it's not bringing me in the same way that they brought me into the other bloggers' posts. And so that's something that you need to keep in mind. You don't have to be like, OMG, she's so smart when you're talking about yourself. Like, that would be weird.
And I did see people doing that for a while, and it was weird.
I did too. And
but I think probably only bloggers noticed, right? Yeah, like, we all noticed because we know each other.
Yeah. We're the only ones who know or care, but it makes me feel weird when people do that. But share why did you write this post? Like, even just answering that question for yourself. Like, when you're going to share something on Facebook, answer that question. Type that in the description field, and that could be a great place to start. Like, you don't literally say, I wrote this because, but in your mind, think through, why did I write this? Write that description in there. Have you ever felt this way? This is how I'm feeling today. Here's a post about it. And that can kind of get you started in describing your own a little bit better, or at least as well as you're describing other people's blog posts.
Totally. Well, I want to kind of close out by touching back to the idea that I spoke about in episode 127, which was binge-worthy content. And this kind of goes to something we touched on in this conversation about kind of what you do to optimize a post that's going viral. So I think if you have one of those posts that is especially heartfelt, but I mean, really any post that goes viral, like, what are the things you can do to keep people on your page, on your blog, and, making it the most beneficial, especially if you really want people to go binge and dive deep into your site? What can we do with those viral posts? Absolutely.
I think it's important to keep in mind kind of the don't overdo your call to actions at the end. I think that's one big mistake that I see a lot of people making when something goes viral is they'll add in like 6 calls to action at the end. And that's one great way to make sure people don't go deep in your site, because you've asked them to subscribe to your newsletter, follow you on Facebook, buy this affiliate product. You've shown them a whole like listing from Amazon, and here's 6 other posts from my blog that you can read. Like, no one's going to do all of those things. And instead of funneling me to 1, maybe 2 options, you've just completely overwhelmed me and I clicked away. So keep that in mind, like that rule of thumb of 1 to 2 call to actions in a regular post still applies to viral posts. You just have to be craftier about what you're calling them to action. I think a newsletter sign up is amazing. If you can pull together some sort of opt-in, some sort of freebie that's relevant to the post that is going viral, I think that's going to be a really strong call to action. I would do that and do another post on your blog as my 2 calls to action that I would allow for a viral post. Because in that email, that's going to allow you can push some affiliate products, not from Amazon. Later on, you can push other products that you have, more posts. Obviously, if you listen to Kirsten's podcast, you know how important your list is. I don't need to go into that.
Yes, people understand. First-time listeners, maybe not. Go back and listen to
listen to the other 100 podcast episodes. But that gives you that opportunity. And then funneling people into the next post on your site that's relevant, and making sure, I think this is really important, not just sending them to that second post, but make sure you optimize that second post as well and have a third post for them to visit in the bottom of that second post, because that's what's going to keep them diving deeper and deeper, right? A lot of the time we'll link to one and then we're like, yay, we did a thing. Yes. But at the end of that second post that you link to, there's just nothing. So make sure that you have a third, maybe a fourth thing on there. Immediately go to your About page and make sure that thing looks awesome, and make sure that you have something in there relevant to the post that's going viral that day. So even if it's not, the thing that normally goes viral on your site, but you could put the opt-in for your email in your About page that's relevant to that viral post, at least just for that day. Because that's where people are going to be clicking over from, right? They really love this post. Maybe they read a second post and they're like, yeah, I kind of like this girl. I'm going to go click About and see how interesting she is. Well, then if you have that newsletter sign up again in your About page, that's giving them the freebie that would be interesting to somebody who just read that viral post, you may get some signups from that About page as well. And then after the post isn't viral anymore, just remove that and put your About page back to normal. But having a couple edits in there wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, because I always do see at least a couple hundred clicks to my About page that's normally dead when I have something go viral. So I think that one is also often overlooked just because it is only a few hundred people. And so when you're getting thousands a day, you're like, oh, what's a few hundred? But those few hundred are actually really interested in you. So doing a lot of optimizing and explaining who you are and sending them all over your blog to your best content from that About page is more important than ever, really, when you have a viral piece of content.
I agree. And that's something I just don't think about all that time. But I know I was just thinking, like, the last couple times I've clicked over to read posts that I really liked, that was the next place I went, not the post they recommended, but I was like, who is this person? Exactly. I want to know who they are. And then if I liked that page, I signed up for their email because I'm an email junkie. So yeah, that's huge to think about. And now I'm like, ooh, we need a post on writing a perfect About page. So putting that in my brain for later. But for now, your About page is normally very general, but there are certain aspects of you that probably are applicable to that viral post. So hone in on a couple of those things. And I would save a copy of your original About page as well, just for the rest of the time. But for at least that week, you need something that's very specific for the people who are obsessed with, kids' safety in the car. Have a couple things about, why it's so important to you that your kids stay safe in your About page. And that's going to have people relating to you much more. That's so good. I've never heard that advice to do that. And I think that's just really smart. Like, every time I hear you talk about these things that we should do, I'm like, that just makes sense. That just makes good sense. But it's not stuff I always think of on my own. So thank you so much. I feel like I have so many nuggets to get into the show notes, so you can go find out more and find links to Paula. But for now, where can people find you?
Okay, everywhere.
You are all the places.
Everywhere that blogs can be found. Beautythroughimperfection.com is my main site. That's my family site, and I have blog tips on there as well. And then I do run a blogging group. If you search actionable blogging, that's the page, or quick blogging tips is our free Facebook group. I would be happy to see any of you guys there.
And it's great stuff. Like, I'm in her group because I'm a fan and a friend, but it's really good content. So if you guys are looking for more stuff like this that's super actionable and super practical, and not like, it's not like the blogging advice where you're like, this is awesome, I'm never going to do that. These are all things where you're like, I could do this right now. Like, this is great. And it would make an impact. So
my quick tips group, the goal is to have everything be under 5 minutes, but something that will make a intense change to your blog, but it took you 5 minutes. You can do that.
Okay, why isn't this a book yet? Maybe we need to talk later about that.
Oh, I'm working on it.
Oh, good. Okay, of course you are.
I'm working on it, just slowly.
Perfect. Well, Paula, thank you so much for coming back on the show. It was great to talk with you about this, and I know that there is just so much in what you have said that people can take away. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's always super fun to chat with you.
And October's almost over, and the dark nights are closing in again.
Oh my goodness. If you are interested in viral content, I'm pretty sure this episode delivered. Paula has so many great things to say. She's one of my favorite people because she's just smart and strategic. And so I always learn something from her. And we've talked about this before privately. We talk a lot actually via mostly Facebook Messenger, every so often on the phone. But I always learn something when I talk to her, and this interview was no exception. So I have a lot of things that are going through my mind and that I'm considering in terms of what makes people connect. And I think that's really the key, is that we want to get them to connect, to share the content. And then once people are there, we want to have them stay. So if you want to kind of use those things together, you can partner this with episode 127, which is all about binge-worthy content. So that is creativewriting.com/127. This is creativewriting.com/129. I want to make it easy for you guys to be able to remember this, because if you're like me, you're listening to podcasts on the go. And if I know that I can just go to a site and type in like the episode number at the end of it, it makes it so easy. So I hope that's helpful for you guys if you're ever trying to find things, because I know it's really frustrating. If you're listening in the future, hey, people in 2020, it's good to hear from you. And you're trying to find the show notes and I just say, go to the podcast page. That's not super helpful. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. That's why I'm always giving you guys those numbers. So head over there where you can find out more, see links that we talked about, and get tips if you like to read things as well as hear them in your ears. That is all for today. Don't forget the membership is closing. Again, this is going to close March 1st, 2018, or when we hit 50 members. So get on that if you are interested. creativewriting.com/membership. I'm going to leave you with my new greeting. Nobody has said whether they like this or not, so let me know in the Facebook group or tag me, Kiki Mojo on Twitter, and let me know. Now go create content that you love and serve your people well.